I found out my high school math teacher, the most boring monotone man I've ever met, is secretly the world's biggest rising pop star, and I'm the only one who knows. Would you keep his secret if it meant your grades stayed perfect, or would you leak it to the world for 15 minutes of fame and a massive payday? That's the question I've been asking myself every single night since I followed him into a recording studio in the city. Imagine finding out the person who just gave you a C- on a calculus quiz is the same person you've been streaming on repeat for 6 months. It's a total mind shift, and honestly, I still haven't fully processed how someone can live 2 completely different lives without cracking. I'm going to tell you exactly how I found out, the mess it's made of my life, and why I'm currently sitting on the biggest secret in the history of my town. It all started during my senior year at Oak Ridge High. If you've ever lived in a small town, you know the vibe. Nothing ever happens, and everyone is obsessed with everyone else's business. My math teacher, Mr. Harrison, was the guy everyone ignored. He wore the same 3 gray suits, had a voice that could put a caffeinated squirrel to sleep, and never smiled. He was just there, a fixture of the school that nobody thought twice about. He had these thick, wire-rimmed glasses that always seemed to be sliding down his nose, and he spent every lunch break eating a plain ham sandwich alone in his classroom. To the rest of the world, he was a ghost. He seemed like the kind of man whose only excitement in life was finding a typo in a textbook. Meanwhile, the entire internet was obsessed with this anonymous pop star named Echo. Echo never showed his face in music videos, always wore a mask during live-streamed performances, and had this hauntingly beautiful voice that sounded like pure silk. I was obsessed with him. Every night, I'd study to his tracks, wondering who this mystery man was. I had posters of his logo all over my room. I'd spend hours on Reddit threads dissecting his lyrics, looking for clues about his identity. Some people thought he was a washed-up boy band member, others thought he was a literal prince from Europe. Nobody, and I mean nobody, would have guessed he was a 34-year-old man who struggled to explain the Pythagorean theorem to a room of bored teenagers. One Friday, I was staying late for a makeup test because I'd bombed the last one. Mr. Harrison told me he had to leave exactly at 4 p.m., and that I should leave my paper on his desk. He seemed unusually rushed, almost nervous, which was weird for a guy who usually moves at the speed of a snail. As I was finishing up, I noticed he'd left his personal laptop open on his desk, which was totally unlike him. Curiosity got the better of me. I walked over, intending to just close it, but the screen was on a digital audio workstation, and I saw a vocal track labeled echo_vocal_master_04. My heart stopped. I hit play on his speakers, and that same silk-smooth voice filled the empty classroom. It was the unreleased bridge to Echo's newest single. I couldn't believe it. The juxtaposition was insane. The dusty chalkboard behind me and the sound of a multi-platinum voice coming from the desk of a man who looked like he'd never even seen a club. I grabbed his keys, which he'd also forgotten in his haste, and decided I had to follow him to be sure. I trailed his beat-up sedan all the way to a high-end studio in the warehouse district, nearly 3 towns over. Watched from the shadows as this boring teacher stepped out, threw on a designer leather jacket, swapped his glasses for contacts, and walked into the building with a confidence I'd never seen from him. He carried himself differently. His shoulders were back, his head was held high, and the way the studio security greeted him like royalty confirmed everything. I waited for hours in my car, my mind racing. I could take a photo right now and sell it. I could be the girl who unmasked Echo. Think about the followers, the money, the sheer chaos it would cause. But something stopped me. I waited until he finally came out around midnight. He wasn't wearing his glasses. He looked like a superstar. I accidentally tripped over a trash can as I tried to get a better angle for a photo, and he saw me. The look of pure terror on his face was something I'll never forget. It wasn't the look of a celebrity caught by paparazzi. It was the look of a man who saw his entire life collapsing. He didn't get angry, he looked defeated. He pulled me aside and told me everything. How he loved teaching but used the music as an escape, and how his contract required him to keep his identity hidden to maintain the mystery brand. He explained that his label believed that if the world knew Echo was a nerdy math teacher, the fantasy would be ruined and the sales would plummet. He begged me not to tell anyone, saying it would ruin both of his careers. He was shaking, and for the first time, I didn't see a teacher or a star. I saw a human being who was terrified of losing the things he loved. He told me about the years of rejection, the countless demos he sent out that were ignored until he put on the mask. He told me that teaching gave him a sense of reality that the music industry lacked, but music gave him the soul that the classroom couldn't satisfy. It was a delicate balance, a tightrope walk over a canyon of public scrutiny. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Before I tell you what happened next, the crazy deal we struck, and the absolute chaos that erupted at school, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have sold the story to the tabloids for $1 million, or kept the secret of your favorite artist out of loyalty? I decided to keep the secret, but it came with a catch. I told him I needed tutoring, real intensive tutoring, to make sure I got into my dream college. But it wasn't just about the grades. I wanted behind-the-scenes access. For the next 3 months, my life was a surreal blur. I'd spend my afternoons in $1 million studio, doing math homework while the world's most famous mystery man recorded chart-topping hits in the next room. We became actual friends. I'd help him with lyrics sometimes, giving him the team perspective on what sounded cool versus what sounded like an old man trying too hard. I saw the toll it took on him, the exhaustion of grading papers until midnight, and then writing lyrics until 4 a.m. He'd come into class on Monday morning with dark circles under his eyes, and the other kids would just laugh and say he was probably up all night playing video games. If only they knew he'd just headlined a secret underground show in London via hologram. I remember one specific Tuesday where he was trying to explain logarithms while humming the melody to what would become a global smash hit the following month. It was like living in a movie. I was the gatekeeper of a secret that could break the internet. Yet I was sitting in the third row of his classroom, watching him struggle to get the projector to work. I started helping him manage his social media presence from the back of the class, using my phone to reply to fans while he pretended to be interested in the school's budget cuts. But the pressure began to leak into our normal lives. Mr. Harrison started becoming more distracted, forgetting his lesson plans, and once even accidentally hummed an unreleased track during a parent-teacher conference. I had to cough loudly to drown him out. Then things got really complicated. A rival student, Sarah, started getting suspicious of why I was spending so much time with Mr. Harrison. Sarah was the typical mean girl who also happened to be the daughter of the school board president. She was used to getting what she wanted, and she was annoyed that my math grades had suddenly jumped from a D to an A+. She started following me, trying to catch us in a compromising position. She thought we were having an affair and started spreading rumors. The whispers in the hallway were deafening. People were looking at me with disgust, and teachers were starting to give Mr. Harrison cold looks in the faculty lounge. It was heartbreaking because the truth was so much more innocent, yet so much more explosive. Sarah even tried to steal my phone, thinking I had evidence of our relationship. Instead, she found a voice memo of Echo's new song, though she didn't recognize it yet because it hadn't been released. She just thought it was some random guy singing, but it was enough for her to run to her father. The school board got involved, and they called a formal disciplinary meeting. Mr. Harrison was about to be fired, and his entire reputation was on the line. He couldn't defend himself without revealing where we actually were during those tutoring sessions. If he said we were at a recording studio, the secret would come out. If he stayed silent, he'd be branded a predator. It was a lose-lose situation. His lawyer told him to just confess his identity to the board in private, but Mr. Harrison knew the board was full of gossips. If he told them, it would be in the local paper by morning. On the morning of the hearing, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Sarah was there with her father, looking smug, ready to watch us fall. My parents were there, looking confused and disappointed. Mr. Harrison sat there in his cheapest gray suit, looking like he was ready to accept his fate. I realized that if I didn't speak up, his life would be destroyed, but if I told the truth, his music career would be over because of that no-reveal contract. I had spent the night before compiling every bit of legitimate math music theory I could find. At the meeting, I stood up in front of the principal and the board. I didn't reveal he was Echo. Instead, I produced a fake but highly detailed log of authorized music production internship hours that we'd mocked up, claiming he was mentoring me in sound engineering through a secret school-sponsored community outreach program. I showed them photos of the studio equipment, conveniently cropped to hide his face, and told them he was helping me build a portfolio for a sound engineering scholarship. I even went as far as to play a track I'd produced, which was actually a demo he'd discarded. Sarah tried to argue, but I had the receipts. It was a massive risk, but it worked. The school board backed off, and Sarah was humiliated for bringing baseless accusations. But the stress had changed Mr. Harrison. He realized he couldn't live a double life forever. The pressure was eating him alive. He told me that night at the studio that he felt like he was lying to the two things he loved most: his students and his fans. He felt like a fraud in the classroom and a ghost in the music world. A week later, Echo released a new song dedicated to the one who kept the light on. It went #1 within 12 hours. The lyrics were all about a girl who saw the man behind the mask and chose to protect him. Only he and I knew who that song was really about. He eventually decided to retire from teaching at the end of the year, to pursue music full-time under his real name. Thanks to the confidence I helped him find. He realized that the mystery wasn't what made people love his music, it was the music itself. He held a final assembly at school where he performed one last song, still masked, telling the students it was a gift from a friend of the school. I stood in the back, tears in my eyes, knowing that the man on that stage was finally free. The moment he hit the final note, he reached for the mask, but then stopped. He wasn't ready to tell the whole world yet, but he winked at me in the back row. He even helped me get a full-ride scholarship for music business at a top university and hired me as his first official intern. After he left the school, the mystery of Echo continued for a few more months until he finally did a live unmasking on a major talk show. The world went crazy. The boring math teacher headline was everywhere. Sales doubled. People loved the story of the man who just wanted to teach kids while also being a superstar. Sarah's family moved away out of embarrassment, and the school actually put up a plaque in the math hallway. Not for Mr. Harrison, but for the anonymous donor who funded the new music wing. Looking back, I realized that everyone has a secret world they're living in, and sometimes, being a part of that world is better than any amount of money or fame you could get from tearing it down. This experience taught me that people are rarely just who they appear to be at the surface, and a little bit of loyalty goes a long way. I could have been rich for a week by selling him out, but instead, I have a lifelong mentor and a career in an industry I love. I still listen to his music every day, but now, I don't have to wonder who Echo is. I know him and he's the best person I've ever met. Like this video if you were on my side, and think I did the right thing by keeping his secret. Subscribe for more stories like this, and share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Did I let him off too easy? Or was I a hero for protecting his art? I'll see you all in the next story.